All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to explore something fascinating, how the most personal parts of our lives, our gender, our faith, can become huge political forces, especially in a democracy as complex and vibrant as India.
So, I want to kick things off with a question that might sound a little strange at first. Is washing dishes a political act? I know, it seems like a weird place to start a conversation about politics, but stick with me on this. Because what happens in our homes, in our private lives, can actually reveal a whole lot about the power structures in our society.
And that question leads us directly to this idea, the sexual division of labor. This is the system, and it's deeply ingrained in so many cultures, that housework is basically women's work. Now, the really crucial thing to get here is that this isn't about biology or who's better at what. It's a social expectation, a stereotype that shapes our lives from a very, very young age.
So, okay, how does a social expectation like this one actually become a political issue? Well, it becomes political the moment we realize that this division isn't just some private arrangement between people. It actually creates systemic inequality that affects half the population.
And in a place like India, this system is a key part of a much broader structure, a patriarchal society. The word patriarchy literally means rule by the father. What it really is a system that values men more, and as a result, gives them more power, not just in the home, but in public life too.
And this, of course, leads to very real, very tangible disadvantages for women. So let's pull back the curtain a bit and look at some of the hidden inequities that come directly from this gender-based division.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because this data makes the invisible visible. This is a time use survey from India. Just look at these numbers. Men spend about 6 hours a day on work that earns them an income, while women spend less than 3. But now, flip that for household work. Women spend a whopping 5 hours a day on unpaid labor, compared to just half an hour for men. And here's the kicker, the real bottom line from all that data. When you add it all up, an average woman in India works over an hour more than an average man every single day. Think about that for a second. An entire extra hour of labor every day, and a huge chunk of it is completely unpaid, unrecognized, and just taken for granted.
This inequality in how time is spent doesn't just stay in the home. Oh no, it cascades out into every single area of life. It means less time for education, which helps create a literacy gap. It has a huge impact on career progression, which leads to unequal pay and way fewer women in top jobs. And in its most tragic, most extreme form, this societal preference for sons can lead to practices like sex-selective abortion.
This map just shows the devastating result of that. It shows the child's sex ratio, so the number of girls for every 1,000 boys. It's alarmingly low across huge parts of the country. I mean, in some of these lighter-colored areas, it drops below 875 or even 850. This is not a natural phenomenon. It's the direct result of a deeply ingrained social bias.
But faced with all these systemic problems, women didn't just accept it. They organized. And this is exactly how a personal, private grievance starts to build into a powerful political movement, taking the fight from inside the home right out into the public square and all the way to the halls of power. And the movements that have fought for these changes are called feminist movements. It's really important to be clear about this definition. A feminist is simply anyone, man or woman, who believes in equal rights and opportunities for all genders. It's not about superiority, it's about equality, plain and simple.
So these movements came to a crucial realization. To get their issues taken seriously, to actually solve their problems, they couldn't just be on the outside protesting. They needed a seat at the table. They needed to get a share of political power to make sure their problems got the attention they deserved. But just look at the massive gap between that goal and the reality on the ground. In state assemblies all across India, women hold less than 5% of the seats. Even at the national level, in the Lok Sabha, the highest percentage of women ever was just over 14%, and that was as recent as 2019.
And this chart really puts India's situation into a global perspective. At around 14.4%, India is well below the world average of 24%, and it's just miles behind places like the Nordic countries, which are up over 42%. It just goes to show you what a huge challenge political representation has been.
But after decades and decades of demands, this happened. In 2023, the Women's Reservation Act was passed. This law reserves 1/3, that's 33% of seats for women in both the national and state legislatures. This is a truly historic outcome of that long, long political struggle. It's a direct result of making a social division a political issue.
So we've just seen how gender, which is a deeply personal part of our identity, becomes political. Now let's switch gears and look at another identity that's just as powerful: religion. And just like with gender, when religion and politics mix, it can be a force for good, but it can also be a source of really deep and dangerous conflict.
Mahatma Gandhi famously said that religion can never be separated from politics. Now, he wasn't talking about one specific religion taking over the state. For him, religion was the source of ethics, of the moral values that he believed should guide all political action. And you can really see this positive side in action. Politics is the tool that human rights groups use to demand protection for religious minorities. It's the arena where women's movements have fought to reform family laws within different religions to make them more equal and more just.
These examples are all about using political expression to fight for justice, which is really a core function of any healthy democracy. So what's the tipping point? When does this blend of religion and politics cross a line and become truly dangerous? A threat to democracy itself?
Well, the danger starts right here, with this idea of communalism. This is where politics stops being about justice and starts being about dominance. It's when religious symbols, leaders, and really emotional appeals are used to rally people against another community. You can think of it as weaponizing faith, claiming your group is superior and that you must use state power to dominate others.
And communalism is built on a very simple but incredibly dangerous lie. The idea that everyone who follows one religion forms this single group, all with the exact same interests. It completely erases all the other identities a person has, their class, where they're from, their gender, their job, and it insists that only their religious identity matters. This flawed logic is the absolute foundation of communal politics.
Which brings us right to the core tension we've been exploring this whole time: the political expression of our identities. Well, for a democracy, it's really like a double-edged sword. On the one hand, just like we saw with the gender issue, bringing these social divisions out into the open, into the political arena, is absolutely essential. It's how marginalized and disadvantaged groups can demand their rights, gain representation, and achieve real, concrete progress, like the Women's Reservation Act.
And so that leaves us with the ultimate challenge, doesn't it? If ignoring identity leads to injustice, but weaponizing it leads to conflict, then what's the answer? How can a democracy successfully channel all that energy from our identities to empower people, while at the same time stopping it from tearing society apart? That right there is the fundamental question that every diverse democracy has to keep trying to answer.